Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news this Sunday evening. And look, quite surprising actually, because we don't normally get this sort of an update on a Sunday evening. We don't normally get this sort of an update on an evening show unless it's a transfer window. So big story coming in about Diomonde. Remember last week I said from the source we have that United, this is probably the most likely deal that United would be working on at the moment because they have good relationships with Leipzig. They want a winger and this is the winger that they want. Well, there has always been this Liverpool story about him wanting to play for Liverpool. He's literally dropped an interview tonight talking about that. But another added thing to the interview is his reference to Jurgen Klopp, who obviously has a close relationship with him and a close relationship with Liverpool. So does that throw up a block? Having said that, we've got Favel. So, look, we'll delve into that. Also, Marcus Rashford's been slammed a little bit by someone who used to work with him. We'll talk about that. Could there be a return for Rashford? Mason Greenwood, Fabrizio Romano is talking about him and Manchester United tonight as well. Also, I want to delve into the fact that Man City sort of took the piss out of us a little bit today. They've played their 41st game of the season on the 15th of February. We won't play 41 games. That just shows you how embarrassing this season has been for Manchester United. Out of both cups, not in Europe. Man City have already played more games than we'll play this season, and they've probably got another 20 to play, haven't they, to be honest? So, look, it can't happen again, surely. And it is an 8 o'clock show, so you can run the show. You can tell us what you want to talk about, as always. You're very, very welcome. There was something else I wanted to bring into the show as well. I'm just going to tell you what it was because otherwise I'll forget. Yeah, it was about sponsorships and Sir Jim Radcliffe and how his comments last week might have messed that up, but we'll talk about that if we get time. Right, okay, this is what Diomonde had to say in relation to being linked to Liverpool and it being his dream club. So the start of it's quite good for us because he said, look, people made out Liverpool is my dream club, but first and foremost, it's my dad's favourite club. It was always his great wish to see me play there someday because he loves the atmosphere at Anfield. He always raved about Steven Gerrard. I was too young to see him play. We didn't have a TV at home for a long time. He said, I have a lot of respect for Liverpool, but my dream club right now is Leipzig. He also addressed his relationship with Jurgen Klopp and said, no, not that, but we talk every now and then, i.e. we don't talk about Liverpool. He tells me to stay humble and keep working hard. It was always my dream to play on one of Jurgen Klopp's teams. That's not quite possible now, but being so close to him now, talking to him now, shaking his hand, it's incredible. He's a legend, and sometimes I feel like I'm in a movie. So look, good and bad there, I think, if you want Diomonde at Manchester United. I certainly don't think he's signing for Liverpool because he's a Liverpool fan. I think that door is open. However, Jurgen Klopp is a big part of RB Leipzig and the Red Bull group, and he obviously has a close relationship with him. And let's not forget, Jurgen Klopp could be off to Real Madrid himself in the summer. So look, this is somebody that Man United want, as we said last week. Whether you agree with it or not, this is a player that Manchester United want. It's a player that Favel has good relationships with Leipzig, so that will help. But there is a Klopp barrier there, and that barrier could be significant. I would imagine Jurgen Klopp would advise him not to go to Manchester United if he cares about the player, because he would probably look at Manchester United, like most sane people, as a bad place to go for your career. But he is high on Man United's list. It is an interesting update. There is that whole, I'm not necessarily obsessed with going to Liverpool, which gives us a chance. However, Jurgen Klopp is there, but we've got Favel, who has good relationships. It's going to cost money. Surprisingly, it's going to cost money, but it's going to cost a lot of money. But United, I feel, don't really, at this moment in time, have anybody else lined up. So, look, let's wait and see what happens with it. But I certainly think it could be of interest to United going forward. I would take Nusa or Yildiz, says Austin, and Mo. Okay, we're not doing Manscaped tonight, so I don't know why people are talking about that. Rashford back to United will be bad for both parties. I thought you said both bot parties, says Semi. Yeah, look, let me talk to you about Marcus Rashford then very, very quickly. There has been some talk of Rashford coming back to Manchester United over the last few weeks. I think it's going to continue until there is any definitive answer. The interesting thing was there was an interview that I read today from Rod Thornley, who is actually the brother, I think, of Ben Thornley, who used to play for Manchester United. Anyway, he was a masseur at United worked at Manchester United between the year of 2000 and 2019. And in the interview, he said this about Rashford. He says, I'll say it. I don't mind. I know Marcus, and if he's not happy with what I say, I don't care. He became unhappy. He became a different person. I watched this player that used to be happy, lovely, just moping around, especially in the club. Outside the club, I used to see him every now and then, and he was fine outside the club. But in the club, he had this demeanour about him that wasn't great. Then it transferred onto the pitch, and you could see him walking around, and you just wanted energy levels out of him, which is exactly what Michael Carrick is doing now. He's getting the energy levels out of the players, and you wanted that out of Marcus, but you weren't getting it, and it was tossed off, basically. For me, he's half tossed his Man United career rather than it being taken away from him. So look, I mean, that's quite I've barely heard of this person before. They've obviously worked with him. Some people would say, just using the name Rashford to create a headline, we're talking about it, so you could say that. You know what my stance on it is, and it might surprise some people. I don't really see the issue with. I don't see the point in going backwards. We're moving forwards. Marcus Rashford's doing good things at Barcelona, and long may that continue. I hope he decides to stay in Barcelona and doesn't come back to Manchester United. Whether he was walking around the pitch looking miserable, I would say probably was. I mean, we could all see it. I used to see people criticising it all the time. Did Marcus Rashford change in a Manchester United shirt from the player that broke through? Of course he did. Did Marcus Rashford do an interview before he left saying he wanted a new challenge? Yes. There's nothing wrong with somebody wanting a new challenge. Did he toss his Man United career away? I think you've always got to look in the mirror. But I think it was right for everybody. I really, really do. And I don't think we need to rake up old ground at all. I think the future is the future. And whether Rashford should be coming back to Manchester United, I mean, I see people in this community saying they'd like it to happen. I've seen other people saying they'd like it to happen. I mean, for me, it's just an absolute no. I think it's horrific for both parties, like somebody just said, to do that. To go backwards, can you imagine the press around it? If he had, his first bad game, it would be like, here we go again. I think it would be horrific for him to come back, and I think it would be massively misguided for Man United to bring him back. Also, he'd be really expensive. And I suppose the biggest elephant in the room is the fact that he's always been associated with the number 10 shirt, and he's not having it, because it's somebody else's shirt now, so he wouldn't even get his shirt back either. So I don't have. Look, I want Marcus Rashford to start for England because he's quick, and I think he works well with Harry Kane off running past him. I think he works well at Barcelona. I really hope Barcelona take him, because if they don't, I think we could be in a situation after the World Cup where he's training with Man United at Carrington, and then you're sort of like, oh God, you know what? I said it this morning. This is nothing personal about Marcus Rashford. I'd say the same about bringing Rasmus back. I'd say the same about bringing Garnacho back. We need to move forward. I don't want to give Harry Maguire a contract. I want to move on. I don't want Delo and Shaw to be here next season. I want to move on. I don't want Mason Mount here. I want to move on. I want to move on. The only player I'm willing to keep is Bruno Fernandes, because he delivers, he's the captain, and I don't think we can replace him. Everybody else ain't good enough that they can't be replaced, and we need to move on. What have we achieved with all these players, really, when it comes down to it? We've never been anywhere near winning the Champions League. In fact, most of the time, we haven't even qualified for it. We've never been anywhere near winning the league title either. I think we just need to move on and stop. I think this club has got sort of locked into, I don't know what you think about this, I think the club has got locked into this repetition of nostalgia around the last 10 years that actually have been quite shit. I mean, it was only a couple of months ago, people were saying, bring Pogba back. That was a genuine conversation that some people were having. I think we should go for Pogba. And you sort of like, you go, I don't understand why people want to bring back Pogba or Rashford, or I don't understand it. And that's not me dismissing Pogba or Rashford. That's me just sort of like going, why would you want to go back to something that in reality didn't really hit the levels that we're trying to hit? We need to move on, and they need to move on, and the club needs to stop making the same mistakes, really, because as I was saying at the start of the show, Man City played their 41st game today and basically took the piss out of us. I mean, when did Man City ever tweet that they played their 41st game? They know exactly what they're doing. because they know we can only play 40. So they're taking the... And McTominay as well, RIP. I don't want him anywhere near the club either. Not because he's a bad player, but just move on. But Man City were definitely taking the piss out of us today. Who tweets that they're playing the 41st game of the season? They know we're only playing 40. And it is absolutely embarrassing. And whatever Michael Carrick achieves between now and the end of the season, that doesn't replace the fact that this season's been horrific because of the people who are running it, and the players, and Amorim to a certain extent as well, of course. So it's been a shit season that we can't repeat this again. We have to at some point start building the club in the right way. That's my thoughts. And you're not going to build. I think, look, everybody gets. I do it. I'm sure you do it. I nearly did it this afternoon. I was like, felt quite tired. Didn't have a great night's sleep. Had a few beers yesterday. No football I wanted to watch. I'd had enough of watching the curling. I've been watching it all day. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to watch an episode of Only Fools and Horses. It's nostalgia. It's comfy. It's like, I've seen it before. And I think some people do that with certain players and go, ooh, bring them back. Bring the star boy back. And it's like, no, don't bring them back. Don't bring them back because it ended for a reason. Let's move forward. It's like Romano tonight talking about Mason Greenwood. And he's saying basically that De Zerbi has left Marseille. The director of football has left Marseille. This now means that Mason Greenwood's probably going to be the next one that leaves Marseille in the summer. Well, I think he was always going to leave. I don't think it's breaking news that Mason Greenwood's going to leave Marseille in the summer. And as we know, Fabrizio Romano, rightly or wrongly, I've seen people calling it out. I've got to say I don't really notice it. But I've seen people doing clips about it, that he's on the payroll of Mason Greenwood because he's always bigging up Mason Greenwood. I mean, he's a transfer guru, isn't he? I've never really noticed that like that. But I think it's bloody obvious that Mason Greenwood's on the move this summer. Manchester United will get 50% of whatever the profit is on what Marseille paid for him. So if they paid £25 million for him and they get £50 million, we get half of the 25 difference, which is £12.5 million. So that's probably going to be a little bit of money coming into Manchester United. But I literally saw somebody today saying we need to reunite Rashford and Greenwood back at Man United. And I sort of go, you know what? Everybody's got an entitlement to an opinion. But seriously, are you just saying that to wind up your own fans? Or do you actually naively think that that's a good idea? I mean, can you imagine the shitstorm of having Rashford and Greenwood back? And two very different stories, by the way. Rashford's is about football, Greenwood's was about something else. But that would be a recipe for absolute carnage. And it wouldn't even be their fault in the sense that they might come back and just be totally focused on football. But the baggage that both bring, and as I say, two very different bits of baggage, we know the world we operate in. You know the world we operate in. I was seeing today about like... what was her name? I think it's like 6 years today or something like that since that Caroline Flack died. And loads of people were talking about it saying, you know, I think she'd been charged with some offence but there's been a documentary that it wasn't that bad. But ultimately, it's a story of how the press can hound somebody to a point where they end up, you know, dead, basically. That's an extreme example, but I don't know how any Man United fan could genuinely think, even if you think Mason Greenwood and Marcus Rashford and Scott McTominay and whoever else you want to bring back, I don't know how your brain works that you think that would actually be allowed to work. It just wouldn't. When you go back, people always look for angles to create problems. And certainly in this country, with this media, they'd be all over it. I remember somebody saying, bring Memphis Depay back a couple of years ago. And I was like, you do realise with Memphis, he used to walk around in his designer jackets and his car, and every bloody week, one of the articles would be taking the piss out of him, saying he's this, that, and the other. They wouldn't allow these people to come back and have a clean slate. Whether it's Mason Greenwood or Marcus Rashford or Scott McTominay, there wouldn't be a clean slate. It would be, they would always be looking for an angle. And also, you've got to respect as well that there's people in this fan base that don't want Mason Greenwood anywhere near Manchester United, whether you like it or not. There's people in this fan base that don't want Marcus Rashford back either. This is why United need to build a new future. It's the most obvious thing. We need to build a new future. And it's easier to build a new future, if I'm being completely honest with you. Keel Rob, I'm loving this show tonight, by the way. I haven't even read any of your super chats yet. Next transfer window, we need to get Tonali, says Sakin. NB says, I think bringing McTominay back would be okay. Mate, right. There's no point. I said what I thought about Maguire. I like Maguire, but I think it's time to go. I don't agree with keeping him around. I don't. I know some of you do. With Scott McTominay, look, I've celebrated his goals against Brentford and other teams, and he did pop up with good goals. I watched him play against Chelsea the other week in the Champions League, and he was bang average. Absolutely bang average. In a big game that they needed to win, their cup final so far, to stay in the Champions League in Naples, and he was bang average against the likes of Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez. If our journey is to compete with Chelsea, why would you bring back a player that can't play at that level? He just can't do it. He never could. If Scott McTominay came back to England, his level is going to be Spurs. His level is going to be possibly a bench player for Newcastle. Why would we bring that back? He doesn't start for us. At some point, you've got to look at Man United and you've got to start buying starters, not bench players, not Mason Mounts, not people who can do a job. You've got to start buying first team players, because you look at the gap between Manchester United and Manchester City and Arsenal, and it's big. You don't close it by buying bench players for this squad. This squad's not good enough to catch Man City and Arsenal, and you want to buy bench players who can't start in this team. Surely, if the gap between us and Man City is that big, our team's not good enough. So you need to buy first team players to close the gap. You don't buy bench players for a team that's not good enough, do you? So no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Emily Derry says, we have enough elephants in the room without bringing back more from the past. We can't shout for a reset, then bring back players that contributed in different ways to the culture failure we still have. And look, Emily, you make a good point. First super chat of the night. Thank you very much. I think Michael Carrick's doing a great job. I disagree with Roy Keane when he says that even if Carrick wins every game and gets top 4 and wins manager of the month every month, you can't give him the job. Of course you can give him the job. You can give him the job now if you want to. You can say you wouldn't give him the job as an individual, but I don't think it should be off the charts that he can't get the job. However, if Michael Carrick was thinking about bringing Rashford or Greenwood or McTominay back, I'd be like, thank you, Michael. You go and manage Palace. Absolutely not. If that's your judgment, you're not the guy. If you want to go back to try and go forward, you're not the guy. I don't mind bringing him back, but I want to know, if Carrick's going to get the job, I want to know what his vision is. Like, what you're going to do. Because we're not just signing Harry Maguire. You know, we're not just bringing McTominay back or Rashford. That's not happening. So you better have a better plan than that, mate. Otherwise, forget it. But that's unfair. That's unfair to say that about Carrick. But what I'm saying is, he might be like that. He might be like that. All or nothing, Bruno needs to go as well. 100 million, says Keel. Oh, I'm glad you brought this Bruno one up. I'm glad you brought this Bruno up, because I mentioned this on the morning show. I think with Bruno Fernandes, look, I'm not going to go over old ground. We know what Ben Jacobs said. Man United are comfortable to wait until after the World Cup. I did a video a week ago saying red alert. We should be breaking, heaven and earth to get through to Bruno to make him stay. But do I think he's going to stay? That's something else. What I think we should do doesn't matter. I think there's a 50-50 chance that he will leave Manchester United. And that to me is a flip of a coin. And that's just, unacceptable. I mean, look, I love a poll. I do. Let's ask the question. I'm going to do 2. First one, do you think Bruno will leave in the summer? And then we're going to do you want him to leave in the summer? So this is whether you think Bruno will leave. I think that it's 50-50. Right here, right now, I think it's 50-50. I think the interview he did in November, basically slating the owners, was significant. I don't think there's anything in the last 2 months that are going to make... Look, if Bruno Fernandes wasn't happy with the owners in November, I don't think Amrin being sacked halfway through a season and then Sir Jim Radcliffe saying what he said last week is going to make Bruno any closer to liking the owners of this football club. So I think Bruno Fernandes loves the fans. I think he loves the club. I don't think he likes the ownership. I think that's very, very clear. And I think Bruno Fernandes is at a point in his career where loving the club and loving the fans isn't enough if the ownership is, shit. Now, if Bruno Fernandes is like me, or some of you, and he sits there in his garden, like I did a month ago, and says, I don't see a way back for Man United, if he sits there in a moment of calm clarity and says, I love the club, but I don't see a way back, he's gone in the summer. That doesn't mean he doesn't love us. It doesn't mean he doesn't love the club. He probably just looks at it and goes, they're never getting back to the level I need. I've only got 3-4 years left in football. I'm not wasting any more at Man United. And he'll be gone. If he thinks there is a hint of a way back, I think he'll sign the contract. But that's not down to me or you. We can't sell it to him. I think it's very obvious he loves the fans and the club. I think this is about the vision of the club and whether he thinks the next 4 years are going to be like the last 4 years, where it's just this constant repetition of not being in Europe, not winning things, or being in Europe and then not building upon it. And I think it's 50-50 at the moment. I really, really do, which is why I would put the gold in the hand and give him a pay rise. But I really do think it's 50-50. And I tell you what, the cynic in me as well, the cynic in me says this. For me, it's absolutely criminal that Bruno Fernandes goes in the summer. And if he does decide to go, I respect his decision because he is allowed to make that decision. But the club have mishandled the situation to put him in a position where he would want to go. But I do listen to what Bruno said, and it felt what Bruno was saying was that last summer they were pushing him out the door. It felt like the club were pushing him out the door last summer, and it was him and Amrim that wanted to stay. I think there is a chance that the club might push him out the door and that they might have already banked the money in their minds. I think that we're sort of confused as to where the big spend's coming from beyond £100 million from the Champions League. I think they might have already written the cheque in their head. So you have to remember, it might not just be Bruno's decision, it might be the club who are pushing him towards the door as well. Interestingly, 55% of you do you think Bruno will leave in the summer? 55% of you think no. 45% of you say yes. So look, it is quite split. We need to start moving forward, not backwards, says Mike. I hope you're doing well, Mike JW. We need this reflected in our leadership first. We need a new direction other than circling the toilet bowl. Tamil says, Carrick can survive if he can get right back and centre midfielder or DM. Well, we don't want him to survive, mate. I mean, he's going to be here till the summer and he's not going to get any of those things you've said. I mean, I don't really understand what you're saying. I don't want Carrick or any managers to survive. He's not going to survive. Well, he's not going to get any of those players before the summer. And if he's only going to get a right back and a centre midfielder in the summer, then you're damn right he'll be playing survival because he'll be struggling. Mike JW says, I don't want any of our ex-players back. We let them go for a reason. Do not accept back. Would you want an old flame back? No, sod that, says Mike. Some people do. Some people love it. I had a friend from school who's dead now. Which actually isn't relevant. Well, he won't be going back anymore. But the point is, he used to constantly get back with his... I think they were married, actually. Did they get married? No, they had a kid together. And very young, they had a kid together. And I remember they were never a good fit. I mean, she was nice enough, and I could see why. But intellectually, they were never a good fit. She was way cleverer than him. No, I'm joking. It was the other way around. But he'd get in a good relationship with someone, and you'd see him on a Monday, and you go, "Where were you this weekend?" Well, don't tell her, but I was up in literally up in there, you know. And I was like, "What are you doing? You're in a really good relationship, and you keep going back there." And basically, he used to go back there for a reason. She was very talented in a certain area, in a certain room. But I was like, you just keep ruining everything by going back, and it's never going to change. And then they'd get back in a relationship, and he'd ruin that. And it happened about 8 times over the space of a decade. And yeah, and it would always end in disaster. But yeah, he's no longer with us now. So, which is... It is sad, but well, it is. No, it's just sad. It's actually just sad. That was not the point. That is very sad. I'm just saying, like, it's just yeah. Some people do like to go back. They do. Yeah. I don't know what she's doing now, but she'll be doing something. If we keep going back to the same players, we will never move forward. And if we want to improve, we have to move forward for both parties, says James. yes, I completely agree. I just think, like, it's interesting. I was doing an interview with a look. Having done, I don't know what happens next year. Maybe it was something else. I don't know. We're working on a couple of projects at the moment that are really exciting, and I don't know what will happen with the Bundesliga next year. But it's been fantastic on That's Football, and it's it's opened up a lot of opportunities. And I was watching. I tell you what, I was watching a fantastic CDM for Mainz against Dortmund the other night called Sano. I'm not saying he's right for Manchester United, but you just get to see these players and you think, even if they come over and they play for Everton, it's just nice, isn't it? It's like when you find a player on Championship. Man, it's like when we signed Dorgu. And I had Dorgu on my career mode 2 years before Man United signed him. So it's just nice when you know players before they come into the Prem or come into your club. But I was doing an interview with a Bundesliga outlet, and they were asking me about Manchester United for about 5 minutes. And they really liked Ralf Rangnick, and they dropped the name Ralf Rangnick, and I could tell they were dropping the name Ralf Rangnick just to get it into the interview because they liked him. And I pulled them up on it, and I went, "Oh, I'm happy to talk about Ralf Rangnick." I said, "There's a lot of United fans, especially on United stand, who have huge respect for Rangnick. Like his performances, we were crap. It's probably one of the worst runs of games from Solskjaer being sacked to Rangnick being sacked. We were terrible, absolutely terrible." But his interviews and his press conferences were the most captivating we've probably had. I think he's the best person because we never saw him as a coach. We saw Rangnick as somebody who was stepping in just to guide the club to the end of the season, then step up as to the director of football, and they sacked him. But he's the one guy that actually spoke the best. And the players he was talking about bringing into the club, I mean, it's a who's who of players that have just gone on to do really well. Vardiel, Alvarez, Enzo Fernandez. I can't remember others, but there was quite a lot. Anyway, he said it's open heart surgery. This is what needs to happen at Manchester United. How many years ago was Rangnick here? So, I don't know. Must be 4. Maybe 4? We had 2 years of Ten Hag. We had 1 year of Amorim. So 3 or 4 years ago, that was. And he was talking about open heart surgery. So until we do the open heart surgery, we waste every year. And that's what annoys me, is that we had somebody who should have stayed as the director of football, who sat there in a Man United press conference 3 or 4 years ago and said, we need open heart surgery. We need to ruthlessly remove a lot of these players and bring a lot of better players in. And that was said in a Man United press conference 3 or 4 years ago. And every day we don't do it is another day lost. I mean, we've had strategic reviews since then that didn't even figure that out. I mean, if I was Sir David Brailsford, my strategic review would have been play that interview and follow that path. And we've never done it. It was 2021, says Mike JW. That seems a little bit far away, but if it was 5 years ago, it was 5 years ago. I feel like it was 4. But Ralf Rangnick sat there and said open heart surgery, and we've never done it. We sacked him for it. You know why we sacked Ralf Rangnick? Because he spoke out and said the club have made loads of mistakes and they need open heart surgery. And Murtaugh and Woodward and the Glazers didn't like that because they were being called out, and they don't like people who do that, so they sacked him. And we're however many years on from that, and we still haven't done it, because anybody who speaks any sense of truth gets kicked out of that football club, because you've got to protect the boys' club, haven't you? But absolutely, as James said and Mike says, we have to, at some point, it's going to happen. At some point, we're going to get rid of the deadwood and we're going to bring in new players. I just don't know whether it's going to happen in this decade or the next. Evening, Mark. Hope you're well. Question for you. If we cannot attract the best players and managers because of the chaos baked in, who will come, says Mike. Well, it's interesting. I mean, I don't intend to stay on this one for long, but I saw something in The Athletic, I think it was on Friday. United are really struggling at the moment for the arm sponsors and sponsorship in general. You might remember it from about a week ago. The Glazers are not happy about the brandification of United is dropping off. We're not getting the deals we want to get. Well, in The Athletic on Friday, they were basically saying, and I suppose it's common sense in a way, Sir Jim Ratcliffe's outburst last week, whether you agree with it or not, does not help you get brands. In fact, it's one of the worst things you can do. And I work in that world in a very different way. And if you start saying, it doesn't even mean what you believe is wrong, because some people will agree with you and some people won't. But if you start saying controversial things, especially political things, you are so brand unsafe. So if the Glazers weren't happy a week ago about the lack of brand interest, I'd imagine they were even more unhappy on Friday after what Sir Jim said. And as I say, you might agree with what he said, but if you're Manchester United Football Club and you want to attract brands of the size that Man United need to attract, you do not want people. It's like when Mason Greenwood got suspended, isn't it? Like, if you are sponsoring Manchester United, remember how he was removed from, I think it was FIFA at the time or EA at the time. Brands don't want to be attached to people that are divisive for whatever reason. So, I mean, you could take that as a positive. As I said to you on Friday morning, I feel that, I don't know whether it would happen, but as far as I'm aware, the Glazers have no previous relationship with Sir Jim Ratcliffe. I think he was a means to an end. I think they brought him in to get them the governmental backing and support that they can't get because he's a sir. They might look at this Sir Jim Ratcliffe relationship and say it's making us worse than we were without. I mean, look, to be fair, were the Glazers better off without Sir Jim Ratcliffe? Were they making more money? Was the club doing better? You could argue they were. Is he causing them more problems than he's worth? They can boot him. And maybe they will boot him. I don't know. We should go for Nico Williams and Sarr from Spurs, says Maz Rawawi. You know what? I don't know whether Alex is here. Alex always talks about Pulisic. Caught offside actually linked us to Pulisic today, and I thought I've got to bring that into the show because, I mean, we shouldn't be going anywhere. I like Pulisic, but he's so injury prone, and he's just the American mount, isn't he? But yeah, we did actually get linked to Pulisic by caught offside today. I mean, I don't intend to talk about it in any great depth because he's so injury prone. I'd find it laughable, but I thought I'd bring it in. In relation to Nico Williams and Sarr from Spurs, I would rather go for Bergvall from Spurs. As for Nico Williams, it'd be perfect. I was just thinking about Spain. Yamal off the right, Nico Williams off the left. We need a left winger. I mean, it'd be perfect. Absolutely perfect. We were being linked to him last year when we were playing them in the Europa. I mean, what? This time last year was so good, wasn't it, with the Europa League? Leon. We'll always have Leon. But yeah. I mean, look, Nico Williams is a good shout. I've heard absolutely nothing about it though. Daniel Thompson says, I hope you're doing well and had a good day, Mark. I have had a good day. It's been a cold day, but I have had a good day. Tell you what, it feels a long time since I watched Seb this morning. To be fair, in fairness, we had a lovely meal, took the dog for a walk, had a pint in the pub, caught the penalties of Leeds-Birmingham, which was quite good. And then I've been watching the Skeleton Olympics, again, where they won a gold. I watched the snowboarder double gold as well, and I've been watching a bit of the curling. It's just quite a chill weekend. I've got to say, I'm not interested in the FA Cup really, so it's felt like quite a chill weekend. I understand your point, but Sesko was at RB Leipzig, says Jacob. I think you've gone back to the Diomonde story. Yes, Sesko was at RB. All I'm saying about Diomonde is there's a bit of a backstory to this. So we did a video, I think at the start of last week. Our source said the deal that United are working on at the moment the most is Diomonde because they've got a good relationship with Leipzig. Fivel has a good relationship with them, and he is a player that Man United really want. So they're putting the work in on it. However, obviously Ahmad knows him as well because they both play for Ivory Coast, don't they? However, there is that Liverpool connection, which is apparently to do with his dad, and Jurgen Klopp is there. But Jurgen Klopp was there when Sesko was there. So you can do the deal. And I think we're more... I don't even think Diomonde suits Liverpool as the Salah replacement. I don't. I think if I was Liverpool and I was looking for a Salah replacement, I would be looking at Elise or somebody else. I said it the other day. I thought they'd be perfect for Liverpool as a Salah replacement. Oh, Adeyemi. I think Adeyemi. And that's another player, if I was Man United, I'd be looking at. I think Adeyemi becomes a lot more interesting now than he was in... You know, remember when we got linked... I mean, there's a name for you. Adeyemi. I think if he went to Liverpool as a Salah replacement, he would be brilliant. But he's more right-sided, isn't he? Because he's left-footed. So he wouldn't work off the left. You've got to think about that. You need somebody that's right-footed to play off the left, because that's the way we're going to play. Rodrigo is an interesting player, Tino. Ndia at Everton is an interesting player. So there are interesting players out there. I mean, my big concern about the summer is we need 2 midfielders, a left winger and a left back as absolute priority. And when do United ever get the priorities? We don't. We'll miss out on somebody. Somerville's a good shout as well. Somerville is a good shout. He's having a very good season at West Ham. I don't know about Liao. I feel like Liao is just a name that gets thrown out there that no one's really interested in anymore. Andy Drew says, so are we just going to give up on Dorgu at left back then? Might need... No. You know, with Dorgu, I've always liked Dorgu. I think a lot of people who didn't like him now like him. But whether Dorgu's left back or Dorgu's left wing, we still need both, because you need competition for places. So if you brought in Diomande, Dorgu can compete with him. If you bring in Lewis Hall, Dorgu can compete with him. Remember, Dorgu's left-footed, though. And he can play on the right as well. Anyway, Andy says, I'd go for a younger winger like Almala and an experienced one like Barcola. I mean, I love Almala at Cologne. I really do. But I don't know. I can see him just going to Bayern, to be fair. Number 1, Addy Hater says, Tonali and Baleba, Stiller if Anderson goes City for you, Mark. I don't want Baleba. I really don't want Baleba. I think Man United will sign Baleba, but I really don't want him. I think the... as I said, the red alert is there for me. A couple of people have said they like the hoodie. You can get it. It's our new design. We've got some new hoodies designed. I like the colour of this one, actually. You can get that on United Stand Shopify or just go through the shopping links. Thank you very much. Man United fan for life says, hi Mark, hope you and the family are doing well. Do you think the outburst from Sir Jim will make the Glazers also sell? I also love Driving with Goldbridge. Yes, big up to everybody who's watched Driving with Goldbridge, by the way. Thank you very much. I even saw, you know the guy who was on at the Spurs game in the studio. He does the impression of me. He's uploaded a Driving with Goldbridge, 15 minutes long. I'm going to watch it tonight. He's actually got in his car and basically done an impression of me, so I'm going to watch that. I heard the start of it where he said there's a cement mixer lorry in front of me. I hope it doesn't tip on me because I'll get all stiff or something like that. I thought he's talking about his cock. Anyway, thank you very much for that. Emily Derry said we had somebody who was competent in Rangnick. He was booted out through politics by incompetent people, incapable of owning mistakes. INEOS are no different. Best in class will have taken note of this. Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not saying Amorim was Rangnick, but I don't think that if we had Ralph Rangnick here now speaking out about the problems, I think they'd sack him. And I agree with you. I don't think anything has changed. I think if you are somebody that comes into Manchester United and tells them the problems, you will be sacked. I mean, and that's exactly what we need. And Emily's absolutely spot on. We need a manager to come in and go, you've got this, and wrong. We need to do this, and this. And they'd go, you're sacked. I think we would still sack the person that will fix Manchester United because they think they know how to fix the club and they've got the power and they don't know how to do it. Hi, Mark. In case you watch Bundesliga 2, would you say it would be the most typical Glazer INEOS signing to bring in Kenneth from Hertha? He's 16 to 17-year-old, number 6, says Covey. Well, I don't watch it. Eckhorn, I think his name is. Yeah, I think United would love to bring in the next whoever who's 16 or 17, but I don't think that's what we need at the moment. Freya says, Mark, real talk. Did United underestimate what Michael Carrick actually understood about control and tempo? Feels like we lost a quiet football brain, says Freya. I think you're talking about when he left, when Solskjaer was here. I don't think it really matters. Michael Carrick wanted to go anyway after Ollie. He only did the interim until we got the new guy in, and then he wanted to go because he felt he was part of Solskjaer's team. As Gary Neville said, Michael Carrick might look at it at the end of the season and decide he doesn't want to stay anyway. Because, you know, Michael Carrick's his own man, isn't he? 45% of you think that Bruno will leave in the summer. 55% of you think he won't. The next thing I want to ask you is, would you sell Bruno in the summer? Yes or no? Love Bruno, but don't forget that horrible spell after his last contract extension. I would ask Sir Jim what exactly constitutes a strategic review, says Gaz. Look, Bruno ain't perfect. I said last week, I think he should get Player of the Year over Declan Rice. He's got loads of assists in a crap side. I think he deserves Player of the Year. Loads of people messaged me on Tuesday night when we drew after West Ham and he had a bad game and said, there's your Player of the Year. And I didn't reply because I thought, well, look, people have a bad game. I've seen Declan Rice have a bad game, but that was a bad game for Bruno. Like, he played really poor. He's capable of bad games. We saw it in the Europa League final. He is capable of bad games, but I still don't think he's replaceable. I still think he's the best number 10 in the league. He's erratic. You know, some of the criticism isn't beyond understanding, but in the team we have, I think he shines above everybody else. I don't know why anyone would want back a player that was part of a losing squad. He'd bring that mentality back as well. I don't read my books backwards, says BRT182. Thank you very much. Honza says, to anyone who thinks INEOS should be given time, after 6 years at Nice, the club is currently 14th in League One, 7 points off relegation, and they finished 33rd in the Europa League with 3 points. Yeah, Nice is an absolute shit show, Honza. Basically, what INEOS did with Nice is buy a business, make loads and loads of promises, and a few years later on, they're in a worse position than when they were bought. That's basically what they did with Nice. So, look, I think Simon Jordan said it, in fairness, right at the start. And I mean, Simon Jordan is hit and miss. Sometimes he speaks total sense because he's well educated. Sometimes he talks total bollocks because he's well educated. It doesn't matter. But I will always give credit where it's due. Even I didn't know this at the start. When we appointed Sir Jim Ratcliffe, he said there is absolutely no sporting presence or evidence that INEOS know what they're doing in relation to running a football club. There is nothing out there. Cycling, they did quite well. F1, not so much. Rugby, not so much. There is no evidence that they are winners when it comes to football. And that was before anything. That was when all the hype was there. Well, here we are 2 years later. I don't think they know what they're doing. I really don't. My personal boring opinion is that the Glazers said to them, we're going to make a lot of money out of the regeneration project, but they'll never sign it off because we're American. We need somebody with connections in the government to get it signed off. If you give us $2 billion, it'll be worth 4 in 5 years' time. What do you think? I just always feel when I listen to Barada, he's a businessman. I think this is a business play. I wouldn't be surprised if Barada has a bonus scheme around the regeneration project. I think this is a cash grab. It's definitely a cash grab for the Glazers. I think it is for INEOS, and I think it is for everybody else. I think they're just mugging everybody off with pretense about ambition. I think it's about surviving and making the fans just put up with it until we build the stadium. And then when we build the stadium, they're rich. I don't think they're building the stadium to make us win the league. I think they're building the stadium to make themselves rich. Because once that stadium's built and the regeneration around it, United's value goes up on paper massively. Look at Tottenham. They've got Beyonce concerts. They've got the NFL. They've got an amazing stadium. They're in the bottom half of the league for the second year in a row. That stadium has made no fucking difference at all. And United are trying to tell us when they build a stadium, we'll have so much money, we'll be able to win the league. Bollocks. Absolute bollocks. They want the stadium to make themselves rich. There is no benefit to us as fans or Manchester United Football Club in that stadium. It is completely and utterly a cash grab for everybody involved. Everybody involved. It's like having a farmer's field outside London and saying to the government, you can have that field and build whatever you like on it. And the government go, absolutely, we need land. That field is going to make you very, very rich. You don't give a shit about the people who are going to live on that field. You're going to be very, very rich. And that's what this is all about. That's what it's all about. It's what it's always been about. It's not about Man United becoming a big football club. It's about the Glazers and INEOS making a shitload of money. To anyone who thinks INEOS, I've done that one from Hamza. Mark, I think Bruno already had that garden moment. He's just playing good to market himself to suitors all over Europe. His numbers are proof enough, says Naz. I mean, I don't know that, mate. I am 50-50 on whether he's going to go in the summer. But if he is going to go, he's going to play well to attract attention. And if he's going to stay, he's going to play well to try and get us in the Champions League. So, yeah, I mean, look, you can read it however you like. But if Bruno is thinking of going in the summer, and let's be honest, Bruno might be like, I'm going to make my mind up after the World Cup. I'm going to give it my all until the World Cup. And I'll see what's on the table. And after the World Cup, it might be Saudi or stay at Man United. And Man United are in the Champions League. And he goes, I'm not really bothered about the money this year. I'll stay. Or after the World Cup, it might be Saudi, Man United, Bayern Munich. It might be Saudi, Man United, PSG. It might be Saudi, Man United, Real Madrid. In which case, he might fancy one of those. So it depends what offers are on the table. Matthew Richardson says, statistically, studies show the number one factor for on-field success is the wage bill. United need to build their squad this way. How did Arsenal do it? Look at Zubimendi, Eze, Madueke's wage now, says Matthew. Well, I don't know whether that's correct, Matthew. I don't know whether that's correct. However, I have said this a few times, and it's been flagged by a few of you. We are, and have, even in this community, people who get really excited about the wage bill coming down. Really excited about it. And I've never really understood it, because if we had the biggest wage bill in football, I don't care. I don't. As Matthew says, I think it's a pathway to success. As long as you're spending that money on the right players. Why would I give a shit if Man United's wage bill is the biggest in the Premier League? My only question is, are we spending it on the right players? That's where we went wrong in the past. When Cantona left, we thought it was over. Rest is history, says Keel. And Ryle says, hi Mark, if Rashford wins the Champions League with Barcelona, would you not want him back as a winner who can get the dressing room a feel-good factor? No, I don't want Rashford back, Ryle. Could there be a way back for Rasmus, says Tom McBride? No, I don't think there should be. I don't. Look, I think it's great what Rashford's doing at Barcelona. I think it's great what McTominay's doing at Napoli and Rasmus. Obviously, I don't wish Garnacho any better because he walked around in a Villa shirt. But I wish them all the best in their career. They're not Man United players. They're not causing us issues. It would be hate or agenda to not want them to do well. I think it's great that they're doing well. But I don't want them back. I don't want them back. Whether it's Rasmus, McTominay, Rashford, I don't want them back, because anybody who comes back is going to get double the scrutiny of a new player. And the chances of it going wrong, even bringing Ronaldo back went wrong. I know he did well in the first season, but it still went wrong, didn't it? Just need to move on. I feel Glinios are buying our bench players first, then going for first team players. Maybe we still don't have the pull we used to, says 44 on YouTube. Thank you very much for that. And I love the content and consistency with the content and the community, says Suspicious. I asked the community and you what you think of Bruno's leadership. I think he should stay because he knows the team. Look, I won't be a hypocrite. I don't think Bruno Fernandes is a great captain. I really don't. And I'm not going to be a hypocrite on it. I don't think he's a good captain. I think his petulance can be distracting. I think his petulance can make him lose his cool. I think a good captain is somebody that inspires and leads. And when, when there is pressure, you deal with that pressure. Bruno Fernandes is erratic, petulant, aggressive, overly emotional. So I don't think he's the best captain we could have. But he's the best captain we've got. And we would hugely miss him because he's massively respected in the dressing room. But there's a better version of Bruno Fernandes as a captain. But you would lose his spontaneity. And I don't think Bruno Fernandes would have a problem with what I've just said there. Like, I think there is a better captain than Bruno Fernandes, but we don't currently have anybody better than him. But he does have weaknesses in his game. I mean, sometimes he's arguing with the referee, he's throwing his hands up at his own players. But the positives are he's always available. He never stops running. He's a match winner. He inspires. So, look, he's not Roy Keane. He's not Nemanja Vidic. He's not John Terry. He's not Steven Gerrard. He's not a great captain. But he is the best captain we've got. And if he left, would De Ligt or Martinez or anybody else be able to deal with that? Because being a Man United captain is difficult. Look at Harry Maguire. He's a better player without the band around his arm. It is a heavy burden to carry. If United get Champions League, why not go big with Vinicius Junior, says Dial. Never going to happen, is it? Rashid says, should look at Villa, Newcastle, Spurs for signings. Well, as I said last week, Rashid, we are looking at Newcastle. I think that Villa probably will be in the Champions League, so they'll be okay. However, they sometimes do need to sell players. Jacob Ramsey last year, Douglas Luiz the year before. So sometimes Villa are in a position where they need to sell no matter what. But Newcastle and Spurs, no European football. There will be some players looking to get out. And we will be looking at those, definitely, 100%. Okay, let me just come back here. Thank you for everybody who's tuned in tonight, by the way. I really appreciate it. Did cover that, did cover that, did cover that, and did cover that. Great. Okay, just wanted to make sure I'd covered everything off, because I hate taking things into the next show. Romano says Jan Diomonde is attracting serious attention with United and Spurs. Expects his name to be one of the hottest topics of the summer. I mean, again, that's not breaking news. We know that is happening. Fantastic. No, I think we've got a chance. I think we've got a chance of getting Diomande. And I think Faval is going to be key in that. I mean, look, I haven't got really that much time to get into it, but I think Faval has been trusted on Sesko. Probably still wait and see, but it's looking quite good. That goal he scored on Tuesday was fantastic. He wants Diomande. And apparently he wants Nagelsmann. I like Nagelsmann. I've always liked Nagelsmann. I think Nagelsmann has the personality and determination. I think Nagelsmann would be a very good coach. I just don't know whether Favel could persuade Nagelsmann to come to Man United, and then secondly, persuade United to go for Nagelsmann. It seems like that would be a hard thing to do. I really like Nagelsmann. I really do. I think what he's done at Leipzig, if you know anything about Leipzig, that is a builder. You've got to be a builder. He's managed Bayern. He's managing Germany, so he's got big experience now. He learned a hell of a lot from Bayern, even though it didn't go as well as it could have done. I like Nagelsmann, and I think Faval will push for him. And I'd listen to Faval over Wilcox every day of the week. Nick P says Malin has something like 5 goals in 5 games in Serie A after not being able to leave the bench for Villa. Let's leave our ex-players there, says Nick P. Exactly. Look, you watch an Italian club play a Premier League club and you'll see the difference. You will. But I like Adeyemi. I'm going to throw that name out there. I think Adeyemi as Salah's replacement would do numbers. Big numbers. I think Adeyemi as Salah's replacement could do as well as Elise. I think realistically, I think he's a brilliant player off that right-hand side. We don't need a right-hand sided player though. That's the issue. But I do think Adeyemi is very interesting as well. Okay, who would you take from Spurs, says Mace. Said it this morning. Vuskovic, who's on loan at Hamburg, and Bergvall, I would take at from the midfield as well. I really like those two players. Yeah, definitely. Right, start of another week. I am back with you at 10 o'clock tomorrow. We've got a 7 o'clock video dropping tomorrow. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and it's just been waiting for the right time. So 7 a.m. when you're getting up for work and stuff tomorrow, check out the United Stand. Make sure you're subscribed and got your notifications on. It's a real thinker. It's positive with nuance, and it's a real thinker, so don't miss it. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. I will speak to you tomorrow. Thank you for watching.